Hello, Internet. Welcome into Postgame Live on channel BSR. The Orioles lose a heartbreaker 7-6 to the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm Zach Wolf from BaltimoreSportsReport.com, joined by Scott Magnus from Bird's Eye View. What's up, Scott?
Evening. I can't say I'm doing great, but I'm here.
You're gutting it out. I appreciate that.
Yes.
No quit. No quit from Scott.
No.
Never gives up.
No, I have sustenance that is pushing me through tonight, so I'm going to keep it close to me.
Jabby Burns from Baltimore Sports Report is here as well. Jab, how are you?
I feel bad as an inaugural member of this post-game thing. I feel like I kind of blew it. I don't know.
It's your fault.
Well, I usually take a lot of blame, so I go ahead and put it on these big shoulders.
It is all your fault, Jab. All your fault. So we'll dive in and talk about the 10th inning right away, I guess. And you're gonna look at the box score probably tomorrow and see that yes, the Orioles ended up going to extra innings, and yes, they lost because Giovanni Gallardo, who's starting for the Brewers tomorrow, had a pinch hit RBI double that scored Mark Reynolds, and that's how the Orioles lost. This one hurt a little bit, but what did you think, Scott, of the decision to walk Mark Reynolds to get to Gallardo? I mean, yeah, I guess you got to feel good about the managing in as far as this decision goes.
I can't second-guess Buck on this decision to go to the pitcher. Yes, Gallardo has 12 career home runs, but still, you just have to go with the matchup, and I think it was a perfectly legitimate move. It just came back and bite yourself in the butt, and that's what baseball's about sometimes, is not second-guessing those moves.
I guess what hurts, Jab, is you look at McFarland and he falls behind 2-0 to a starting pitcher and then just grooves one in that Gallardo gets a hold of and hits the deep left center field. If you're going to second guess something, you can maybe second guess what McFarland's doing there on the mound. That's a bit frustrating.
Yeah, you and I both are not a huge fan of McFarland. We go back once in a while on text, and there's some interesting words we use for him, but I don't think the problem is the pitch that he got. The problem is getting behind 2-0 to the pitcher. I think the right move was to walk the sheriff or Mark Reynolds, if you'd like to call him there, and then you get to the pitcher. How hard is it? Obviously, the infield's playing a little bit, or the outfield's playing a little bit in, so tough one for the Birds. But after Memorial Day, hey, split and see what goes on from the rest of the way.
Francisco Rodriguez, yeah, K-Rod picks up the win. He's 2-1 with a 2.33 ERA, pitched an inning, no hits, no runs, a walk, a strikeout. The aforementioned T.J. McFarland picks up the loss in 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 0 Ks. I guess I'll look at the box score here. Nick Markakis with a pair of hits went 2 for 5 with an RBI. Nelson Cruz with a nice day, who unfortunately wasn't there when the Orioles needed him in the lineup spot late, so that was a bit tough to see with David Lowe coming in and pinch hitting for him. Nick Hundley with a hit, Jonathan Scope with a hit, also going 1 for 4. As far as the starters in this game, Wei-Yin Chen, 5 innings, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, no walks. He's not walking anybody, Scott.
Yeah, exactly, no walks.
But 6 Ks. What did you think of Chen tonight?
Actually, I didn't think it was actually that bad of a game besides the 3 home runs. And I know Jake is grimacing inside because when Josh Stinson had his game last year where he basically had a pretty good game except for giving up the 4 home runs against Toronto, I kind of said the same thing. But if you look at his his Ks per 9, they're actually higher than they were for the rest of the season. I really felt that Chen kind of got better as the game progressed along. But, when you throw that many home runs in the game, it's just going to put a sullied mark on it, and we're going to focus on that as opposed to, small things like Ks per 9 or walks per 9.
And then on the other side, Jab, Matt Garza, 6 2/3, looked good early, but ends up giving up 6 runs. 3 of them were earned. We'll talk a little bit about how that happened. A pair of walks and 9 Ks. He looked like early on that the Orioles' offense is going to have a hard time scoring runs against him, but not the case as the game progressed.
Yeah. And Garza is one of those guys that has those blow-up innings. I mean, he can go really deep into a game, 5 innings, 6 innings, and all of a sudden has a blow-up inning. I think that has a lot to do with his head more than anything else. He's a little bit of a hothead. I'll go back to Chen real quick. I thought Chen was in the strike zone, and usually that's a good thing, but his balls were up, whether it was the slider, whether it was the fastball in the first couple innings there. I just felt like everything was elevated. and the Brewers did a great job on that. I'm not a huge fan of Gomez's antics on the field, Carlos Gomez, but you hit a bomb, you ran the base as quick as possible, and when you get down 3-0, I want to focus kind of, Zach, to be honest with you, on kind of the comeback. I mean, still, getting down early like that, Chen didn't have his best stuff. How often can we say that about the starting pitcher for the Orioles?
Yeah, that's a good point. We should talk about the comeback. Sorry, I cut you off there, Scott.
Yeah, before we go to the comeback, I also want to talk about Chen and having that ball elevated. The ground ball percentage tonight for Wei and Chen was at 21.6% compared to his season average at 44.6%. That's a clear indication to me that the ball was elevated in the strike zone and he wasn't knocking the balls into the dirt. So I think it's interesting to note that his ground ball percentage was down, which had the percentage of line drives being higher, which led to more home runs per fly ball as well. So really interesting that Chen was not able to control his pitch selection tonight.
We're obviously all biased here, but Jab mentioned it, and it's something that immediately stuck out to me. What did you think, Scott, of Gomez? I mean, he hits the home run, he knows it's a home run, he drops the bat, he looks at it for a second, sprints around the bases, he gets to third and does this little cute point thing at the dugout. Rubbed me the wrong way, I got to tell you. And I know this is a guy who's been sort of amidst a lot of controversy for the way he plays the game, and it's somebody who roots for a team that doesn't often face the Brewers. I kind of haven't paid too much attention to him.
Zach, you're a guy that thinks Nick Markakis actually has a chance to go to the All-Star game, so you're
10th in voting right now. He does have a chance.
There's no chance in the world. Okay, if you want to put a bet together, we can make this happen, but it's not going to happen, okay?
I said it was a homer pick, Scott. I said it was a homer pick.
I know that, and what I'm saying here is you're making a homer decision here. There was nothing wrong with the way he ran around the bases.
Nothing wrong? No? Nothing wrong with it?
Nothing wrong with it.
Didn't rub you the wrong way, sprinting around the bases, throwing up the deuces when he gets to third. Didn't admire that a little too long, dropping the bat.
No, I had a stopwatch at home, and I was like, hey, he's actually making pretty good splits there across the base path. So I was pretty impressed.
But the splits, that's more almost as annoying as David Ortiz taking a sweet old time around in the bases. They're two different kinds of showboating, in my opinion.
David Ortiz is much worse. Don't even try to compare the two.
I agree with your compadre here, Scott, on this one as well. Gomez really doesn't bother me. I think he's kind of a douchebag, but I do think that that's what he does. At least he does it every time. It's not like he just does it for certain pitches, for certain home runs. So at least he did it. He's consistent with it now. People are out there to know about it. Problem with me is why is Chen leaving up a slider like that? And you know what? He took the biggest hack he could get and hit to the back of the bullpen. So that's the problem.
How big of a story? There's so many storylines in this game. How big of a story, Scott, do you think Zach Britton? We talked about it on the BSR podcast this week. If Zach Britton's going to pitch in the ninth, I want to see Zach Britton blow a save. I was hoping they'd win, but blow a save and then come back from that. What did you think of what you saw from him tonight? And are we confident in his confidence in coming back and being able to pitch in that type of high leverage situation again?
Well, again, I think we need to look at Zach Britton being used on his third day in a row. And even if we go back to Tommy Hunter's repeat occurrences as the closer for over multiple days led to trouble. He basically got worn down and basically started to get shellacked out there, and that's how he got kicked out as a closer. I think it's really interesting to go back to the seventh inning where Ryan Webb was in the game, and he had a 7-pitch inning. And then the eighth inning came, and Darren O'Day comes out. I think it would have been really interesting to bring out Ryan Webb for that eighth inning to see how much he could have got through, and then you could actually have Darren O'Day come out for the ninth inning. That way you wouldn't have had Zach Britton come out on, in 3 days in a row and not put so much stress on him. Regardless, I don't think it was a situation of him being tired. I think it was just the ball bounced the wrong way, and Manny couldn't make that last play to get the final out.
But that's what concerns me, Scott, about having a ground ball guy in that role. And I know Tommy Hunter wasn't getting it done, but I feel more comfortable with a guy who throws hard than a guy who you're dependent on good bounces in the ninth inning.
But again, if we're going to look at someone that throws hard, then when they're going to throw hard, then they're going to be a fly ball pitcher. You look at Zach Britton, we talked about this on our podcast last night. He has the highest ground ball per fly ball ratio right now in the Major League Baseball. He has an 11 ground ball to fly ball ratio. That's almost twice as good as anybody else right now in Major League Baseball. I mean, that's just absolutely impressive. Zach Britton, yes, this is a hiccup in the road, but let's just not say, he's done, he can't be a closer anymore. Yeah. I think this is just a situation where Buck needs to take a look at it and say, is he the closer, or do we need to go closer by committee? And do we need to always say Zach Britton's our closer? And I don't know right now.
I guess that's the question I'm asking. I'm confident in the stuff. Like I said, I'd rather have somebody that strikes guys out than gives up ground balls, because I think what happened tonight is going to happen no matter how dominant the ground ball stuff is. And I don't even necessarily know that you can blame Britton for this. I have a hard time blaming Machado for this too, but I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Jab? What's your take on Britton tonight?
What Scott said. I think it's pretty important if we kind of go back, and I'm the last guy to kind of go after Buck and say, hey, look at this, especially in a National League type environment. Bring Webb out for the eighth, because you need to save pitchers for double switches. You need to save guys for pinch hitting and things like that. If Webb got those guys out, Scott said 7 pitches, why not bring him out in the next inning? You already got the guy that you want, O'Day, your rubber arm, to come back out there if you want to bring him in. He's shown that he can handle it if guys are on base. He's done it in the past. I agree with you, Scott. I think that, I'm not saying that's what come back to Bahamas, but maybe McFarland now is not facing somebody in the 10th inning, as opposed to, you're kind of starting to move that back. Maybe Mattis isn't used, that kind of deal. But I'm not going to, again, I'm not saying anything. Buck made any decisions. I thought he made some great decisions all night. But, that's
hindsight is 2020. Yeah, hindsight is 2020. So I don't think we can second guess it. It's just, it's something that in the back of my head I said to myself, 7 pitch inning, that's just something that irks in my head and just kind of is itching.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of like 3 games, I feel like. Three big storylines. So Orioles go down 5-0 after 4 innings. Then the comeback starts between the 5th and the 7th inning. Nelson Cruz hits his 17th home run. Guy's just absolutely locked in. A blast to watch right now. Added a double later in the game before David Lowe replaced him out in left field and did what David Lowe has done. Nick Markakis with an RBI double in the 6th, and then Adam Jones with a sac fly. And then we got to talk about the hero, Steve Pearce, with a pinch hit home run to left, 3-run shot. Scott, one of the big takeaways for me is he had the green light on 3-0, hit a ball down the line that probably would have cleared the bases and tied the game, but ended up, was it the next pitch or 2 pitches later? Next pitch, hitting that home run. Huge momentum changer. Unfortunately, Orioles couldn't hold the lead. But what was your feeling on Pearce in that situation?
It's amazing. One of the stats that came out was Pearce, since being re-signed in May, he's been batting .339, 3 doubles, 4 home runs, and 11 RBIs. He really has been legendary in terms of filling in for Chris Davis, coming off the bench and being a role player. Me and Jake talked about this on our last podcast of, does he deserve a role in the starting rotation, or is he this premium utility bench player that should be able to come off the bench? And honestly, we are sticking with, keeping him on the bench. He's just doing a miraculous job of being a team player right now. So kudos to Steve Pearce for being the last remaining Steve on this team and still continuing to contribute.
Yeah, who saw that coming, by the way? I was not expecting that move. Actually, I think Jab saw that coming.
Well, I would say this. I would say this about Steve Pearce too. Not only has he come back, but he wanted to come back. We all know that he turned down other offers so that he could come back and be with the Orioles. Buck obviously likes him, puts him in the lineup. Came up big when Davis was out, and perfect in perfect situations. I mean, we've got to remember, we're still going to play some more National League teams. We're going to Chicago in August. I think they're going to Houston here coming up here too. So there'll be some more opportunities for him.
Houston's AL. Remember.
What's that?
Houston's AL. Remember.
Yeah, that's true. Again, there's going to be some spots for him though to get in the lineup. Whether it's spelling him at first, whether it's DHing, even though Delman Young's in pretty well. I think the guy deserves some at bats, but no, he's not ready to get in the starting lineup with this offense at this point.
Scott, Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
There's one other thing I want to point out too, and it was right before Markakis' RBI. Delman Young came to the plate as a pinch hitter for one of the pitchers at the time. It was for Wee and Chen, and he had a 10-pitch at bat there and drew a walk in order to get on base. I thought Delman Young basically showed a great amount of patience again coming off the bench. And the Orioles during that 6th and 7th inning really showed a lot of patience and kind of taxed Garza in order to throw a lot of pitches. And I felt like once we taxed Garza, he started to get into trouble. The rest of the innings, we really had some short outings. And as much as I haven't been a big proponent for saying we need to take more pitches and we don't need to be as aggressive, this is a situation where being a little less aggressive and watching the pitches come in may have rattled Garza a little bit, especially with how inconsistent the strike zone was tonight.
No question. Yeah, without a doubt, no question. And I look at Steve Pearce's home run and kind of taking advantage of situations here. So that inning started off with Nelson Cruz walking. You had J.J. Hardy lining out to center. And then Nick Hundley grounded into a fielder's choice. and there was a throwing error that allowed Nelson Cruz to reach second safely. Gene Segura with a throwing error. Scope grounds out, and then you've got Steve Pearce who comes up hitting pinch in a pinch hit roll. Orioles' first pinch hit home run since 2011, and never would have happened if not for taking advantage of that error. So big move, and yeah, the date, last pinch hit home run, Luke Scott,
Yeah.
April 18th, 2011. So yeah,
dark times.
Very dark times. Right, he's doing that over in Korea right now. Pinch hit home runs nonstop in Korea, from what
Hopefully
I hear.
he found that birth certificate over there.
So taking advantage of a situation, big time, and then are we okay with David Lowe comes in as a defensive replacement in the ninth inning and then has to hit for Nelson Cruz? Frustrating to see. It's hard for me to think that Buck had faith that Zach Britton was going to get it done and David Lowe wouldn't come up in that situation, but he does. Any second guessing there on that one, Jeb?
No, he's done it all year. Lowe's replaced him in the outfield. It's been a defensive replacement. They've done great in extra inning games. 5-1 now in extra inning games, and they're winning the close ones. This didn't come out on top this time, but no, he's done it all year. I don't second guess. It's not like you're bringing in a pitcher, Zach. I feel like you talk about David Lowe like he's a National League or American League pitcher.
There's got to be some pitchers hitting better than David Lowe. I mean, Giovanni Gallardo is clearly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I wouldn't second guess that move at all. What do you think, Scott?
I can't wait for Francisco Peguero to get up here and replace David Lowe. That's all I can say.
It's got to be close, man. I feel like we've got to be getting close to that.
You guys both feel Lowe's the 25th man right now on this roster?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Him and McFarland.
I think McFarland's going to stick it out because they still need a long man in that bullpen, unless you guys have some other suggestion for a long man coming out of Norfolk, but I don't see it right now. It's not like Gamboa's on the 40-man roster, and Wright's been getting shellacked lately in Norfolk. So if I'm looking for a long man right now, it's got to be McFarland.
And especially that Lowe's getting all the start. Cruz is getting all the starts in left field. At this point, I think Buck's okay with him. I mean, Zach, we did it on Odds Makers talking about will Nelson Cruz, get those many starts. What's going to happen there? And it looks like that's the way it's going to go. So I agree with you. I think you have enough outfielders out there where if something comes in a pinch there, he's not terrible out there, right?
Well, you can put Steve Pearce out there too, Absolutely. And like they did tonight, they put Ryan Flaherty out there. But you have
that.
You can have multiple options in terms of outfielders. Are they any better than Nelson Cruz? That's up for debate. But again, is you sacrificing offense for David Lowe? I'm really not sure how good David Lowe's defense is. He really hasn't impressed me with his arm strength so far, throwing from the outfield. And some of the depth that he has, he's made some really nice diving plays. But the way he has approached the ball and ranged the ball, I'll be really interested next year when MLB releases their advanced metrics in terms of fielding on how people approach the ball, because I really have not been impressed with David Lowe's approach to several of these balls he's made some great catches on.
I'm completely with you there, Scott. I totally agree with that, and I think that, I think a lot of these plays end up looking flashier than they actually could be if a better route has been taken. So
it is the epitome to Red Sox diving for a ball so it can get on web gems the next day, even though they didn't really need to dive for that baseball.
Right, exactly. I've got two more offensive takeaways before we move to defense. One's a real quick one. 1 on, none out in the 6th inning. Manny Machado laying down a bunt, and I don't know what you think of bunting in general, Scott, but it just drives me nuts taking the automatic out like that. And you get 27 of these, a couple more tonight, but you get 27 of these, and it just rubbed me the wrong way, especially for a guy like Machado.
Well, I think he was doing it for a hit. I think third baseman was playing back a little bit. I think he just made a really bad bunt attempt. It basically caught backspin, and the pitcher and the catcher were able to respond to it. If he pushes that a little bit further, that's an automatic hit, and you've got men on first and second there with no outs, and we'd be raving saying, that's a great instinctive play by Manny Machado, really heads up baseball. And instead, it's just not executed correctly, so we're saying, darn, that's a really bad thought on his part.
Yeah, he's such a good hitter that it's hard for me to say. And I know he's not nearly as hot as he was last year, but I don't know. He's such a good hitter that it's more frustrating, I think, to see those mistakes when trying to bunt for a hit. For me,
you got to remember, Buck doesn't like to bunt either, so that has to be coming from Manny, especially. Especially in that situation. I think I agree with Scott. I think he's maybe trying to lay one down there Reynolds is down at third. He's seen Reynolds play third enough at that point, so he's thinking maybe I can get one down there, that kind of deal. Who knows? But it didn't work out, obviously. But if it works out, like Scott said, maybe we're all looking like a genius play, got bases loaded, and the harder lineup coming up.
And then Adam Jones nearly ejected after arguing with home plate umpire DJ Rayburn on a check swing. Looked like Adam went, but I would have liked to have seen an appeal down the line, which I think is what Adam was pretty frustrated by. I haven't seen him so animated with an umpire like that in quite some time. I don't know if maybe the frustration is brewing. Hopefully he stays off Twitter, because every time he comes up, people just rant and rave about him swinging at anything outside the strike zone, even though he hits a lot of home runs on balls outside of the strike zone, and I don't know. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
He's going to get fined. It's very lucky that he didn't get thrown out. In fact, you look at his stats against Garza, and he had the best stats in the team going against Garza. Did he deliver that way tonight? No. But early in that game, losing Adam Jones, and hell, you would have had David Lowe coming in for him. That would have been a big impact going through the rest of this game.
Yeah, no question. Defensively, a nice barehanded pickup by Manny Machado. He olayed a throw in the bottom of the sixth, and then, of course, there's the play on the Zach Britton blown save. So you've got some good, some bad, some I don't know if I can blame him for it or not, but I still, and I don't know if it's just totally in my head, Scott, but I just feel like we still haven't seen the Manny Machado pre-knee injury yet, and offensively, obviously, but I still think defensively as well, and he's playing defensively, I think, at a pretty high level, but not at the level that he was pre-injury.
Okay. When Manny first came back, I said the same thing. But watching Manny play right now, you're absolutely crazy, Zach. Manny Machado is an excellent third baseman. The Ole play that he made, that was a terrible bounce. Yes, he should have been in front of the ball, but he was trying to make a reactive play. The one play that he made was the same exact play, and it was a great play where he said, oh, that's an amazing play. He just saved a run, and he threw over to first. He basically did the same thing here, and it basically took a worse bounce on him. The last play of the game, which I know people are going to harp about, that's an almost impossible play. And the only player that I know that could have made that play in Major League Baseball is either Evan Longoria or Manny Machado. But
that's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the standards aren't incredibly high for Manny Machado, and I'm not saying that he's playing poorly defensively. I'm just saying I don't think he's playing at the level that he was last year.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the errors. So far, he's got 5 errors this year, and he had only 4 last year. So from an error standpoint, you're absolutely right. Also, if you go back and look at Manny Machado's UZR for so far this season, it's been extremely lower. But again, it's not that much different than what it was in 2012. So is 2013 an outlier? I mean, he had an amazing season, but it was only one season. Are we really going to just say, he's not okay? I think he's playing a well above average third base, but he's not playing, platinum glove. He's just playing an above average. There's nothing wrong with above average.
That's fair, and maybe it has nothing to do with the injury. I have a hard time pulling that out of my mind. I don't know what you think, Jeb, but if I see Machado, and again, he's still playing at a level that I think is Gold Glove caliber. It's just not, like you said, platinum. He's not the best defensive player in the league right now. So yeah, maybe last year was the outlier, like you said.
Well, I don't know if it's an outlier, if it's just the expectations were just increased. Think about this guy came up, hit a bunch of bombs in his first couple games 2 years ago, got to the playoffs, all of a sudden now making amazing plays, best defensive player, like you said, platinum player. All of a sudden he's coming off a knee injury, a devastating knee injury to all of us last September, I think, as Oriole fans, thinking there's no chance he's going to be back. To get back at this point, playing in May the way that I think he's playing pretty good. I agree with Scott. I think he's kind of rounding into shape, in my opinion. His hose is still there. That's an impossible play. I agree with you, Longoria being the only other third baseman maybe out there that can make that play. It just beat it out. And sometimes, like you said, I think there were some balls just rolling in the wrong way for the Orioles tonight. That's about it.
All right, I'll shut up about Machado. How about the pitching? Prior to today, Matt Garza 9-1 against the Orioles. Got knocked around a little bit there later on in the game, but was not feeling good about the numbers headed into this matchup, Scott.
No, definitely not feeling good about these numbers. Matt Garza has always pretty much dominated the Orioles. He's similar in vein to that Andy Pettitte kind of pitcher that always dominates the Orioles. So, didn't really feel good, especially with Chen going against it. But, you play the game, and it's still come back to the offensive comeback, and the Orioles are able to keep it interesting throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that too. And then just to add on to that, Garza's one of those guys, like I said earlier, that is fine for a couple innings, and all of a sudden he'll just have a blow-up inning. He'll look dominant. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he got the contract that he got from the Brewers at this point as a free agent in the offseason there, is he can look dominant. But then he just gets in these spots where his head goes crazy. He's just got some things going on upstairs, in my opinion. The thing is, the Orioles, though, I would say with their offense, and I know we're talking about pitching here, but it goes back to the pitching from the other side. The Orioles don't string these innings together where they get one here, two here. They're always these big innings. They get like 3 runs, and then they're going to go flatline for a little while there. So Garza was one of those guys where I'm surprised, they were able to with the record. I mean, you talked about the dark days, Scott, earlier. There's a reason why a bunch of these pitchers all have these great records against the Orioles, because they pitched during the dark days when the Orioles weren't that great. So,
I can't believe you're bad-mouthing Norfolk like that. That's absolutely horrible.
I don't know. I just think that, Garza's the kind of guy. I think that was a winnable game tonight. Nice comeback, but in the end, starting pitching and all the platforms that we get involved with, the starting pitching, you can have Chen do that to you. Kills your bullpen, and that's what happened there in the 10th inning. We got McFarland in the ballgame.
Yep, and Chen kind of continuing the trend of Orioles starters. O's starters have allowed 5 earned runs or more in 6 of the last 9 games with an ERA of 7.94. Not one of them has 7 innings pitched during that span. Chen tonight giving up 3 home runs in his 5 innings of work. And I know he's not walking anybody, Scott, but it's still hard for me to be positive about this outing.
Right. I also want to point out, too, I think we need to get away from this whole 7-inning pitch thing. And, there was a new aspect where there was something on Fangraphs that was coming out of redefining a quality starting. It can't just be 7 innings pitched and 3 earned runs. If you look at playoff contenders that were out there last year, their average innings pitched for the rotation was right around 6 to 6 1/3 innings pitched. So if we're getting our starters going out there and pitching 6 innings and giving up only 1 or 2 runs, I'm perfectly okay with that, especially with the way the bullpens are designed right now. You just can't be going out there and going 5 innings and giving up 5 earned runs in the process.
Yeah, no, I totally think that's fair. Yeah, and the game's definitely changing. But it's hard for me to be encouraged by anything I saw from Chen tonight, and hopefully those rotation can turn around, especially when the bats get going. It still seems like they haven't been able to get all aspects of their game going at the same time. So
well, we've got one of our better pitchers coming out tomorrow night. So
that's right. Yeah, Bud Norris against the red hot bat of Giovanni Gallardo, so that'll be a good one.
And Bud had a nice little sacrifice tonight, so he's ready, nice and warm for tomorrow in case he gets to get in there. Buck put him in there, and it's interesting, Zach. All you're talking about these pitchings, and I agree with Chen putting the ball all over the plate today. He has been great. He doesn't walk a lot of people, but when he elevates it, like we talked about earlier, that's trouble for Chen, because I just feel like he has to spot his pitches. He doesn't have dominant stuff, and we got to remember the Brewers are pretty damn good hitting ball club. I mean, I kept looking at the lineup and I kept hitting 300, 300, 300, over 300. That's a nice ballpark to hit in. I'd like to hit in the Milwaukee.
There's a reason Patrick loves the Brewers. I mean, he's not pulling it out of his ass, Jeb.
Yeah, there was some individual that was really high on Chen and said that Chen was going to turn it around based off his BABIP being so high. And for the first 3 innings tonight, Chen's BABIP was right around 450. And it significantly dropped through the rest of the game once he started getting some control of it. So I'm just saying maybe that person needs to step back a little bit and say, it was a bad few innings, but he did turn it around.
I wish Scott didn't read what I wrote like everybody else. If you would just blast me on Twitter, Scott, you'd be a lot easier to have a conversation with. Like all these other crazy guys, like the guy that just tweeted me, DFA that jerk McFarland tomorrow. See, I can respond to that. But when you actually read what I write and watch the YouTube videos, then it's hard to have an intelligent conversation. I mean,
what can I say?
You really put me on the spot here at 12:30.
Yeah, when I can use your own words against you, it really cuts deep.
It does cut deep. One last thing as far as pitching goes, and we can wrap this thing up, get some sleep, come back and watch another O's game tomorrow. I was impressed with Ryan Webb. We mentioned it earlier, 7-pitch inning, getting Ryan Braun to ground into that double play. Best O's pitcher in this game, Scott? You give the Best O's pitcher award to Ryan Webb. Encouraged by that outing?
I'm actually going to give the Best O's pitcher to Preston Gilmet.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Hard not to. But what did you think of Webb?
Oh, I thought Webb was great, but again, I think it was very lucky the way he got out of that inning so quickly. But I thought Preston Gilmet, in terms of his control and his command, has been one of the best relief pitchers that we've had in our bullpen for the past week and a half. I'm really interested to see how well Gilmet does in this bullpen, and to basically give up an 8th-round draft pick from 2 years ago for him. I mean, that's an absolutely amazing trade by Dan Duquette. I don't think we're fully giving credit for Dan Duquette picking him up out of the Indians organization.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. No doubt. Jab, your thoughts on Webb, Gilmet?
Both of them great. Webb's been great. I mean, he's been pretty good lately. I mean, and you guys were talking about Gilmet. He has been spectacular since he's been up here, Scott. And he's getting ground balls. He's got that sinker ball working, changeup working. I don't know. It seems to be working out in that bullpen. I'm not putting this one on the bullpen tonight because, in my opinion, McFarland, when he goes out there, I just kind of close my eyes. So. I thought the rest of the bullpen, even Britton tonight, I can't put this one on Britton. They got a couple knocks here, got a guy over, National League ball, hit a ball down the line, and, like you said, Longoria or Manny, the only two guys can make that play. So, get back after it tomorrow.
Any other takeaways you want to hit on, Scott, before we get out of here and get some sleep?
No, go get some sleep. Sleep it off and come back tomorrow. And you've got big bad Bud Norris on the mound, and the Orioles will come back strong and will win this series and hopefully do well against a Central team again.
I know, no question. All right, so Bird's Eye View, new episode out. Give us a plug. What can we look forward to?
Let's see. We talked about why Jimenez is struggling. I also posted an article on BaltimoreSportsReport.com breaking out the statistical analysis in terms of whiff percentages and also pitch usage by Jimenez and why he's been so good and so bad in May. We talked about Jimenez. We talked about why Tillman is doing poorly, and then we just didn't really have anything else to talk about. So we got a little sexy, and we broke down some sexy potpourri all about the Orioles.
Well, if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what will. Jab, plug our podcast. Well, you weren't on it this week, so you can't plug it.
I was out west, but you guys did a spectacular job. I listened.
Oh, thanks.
And I let everybody listen in as well. And Odds Makers, we got some stuff out on BSR YouTube there to kind of check out that channel. You can go right to BSR and check out me and Zach talking about Nick Markakis, one of us being right, which is me most of the time, and then Zach kind of homering it up.
I love that someone made fun of what you were wearing when I have a Space Mountain T-shirt on with a sports coat. That's my favorite.
Listen,
my favorite thing.
Shoulders are huge. Bring them on, baby.
Yeah, guys. Try to be professional, guys. Try to be professional.
Yeah, I know. Jeez, we suck. All right, that's going to do it for Postgame Live on Channel BSR. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday with another show. Have a good night.
Good night, Baltimore.